So let's have a look at exactly how you can create agents, deploy agents, and get them to link and interact with your live documents on your various cloud servers, etc. So if you go to your account, the account page, then you can authenticate and link your various accounts or drives, email addresses, and so on with your agents. So we've included Microsoft Personal, Microsoft Business, Microsoft Email, Google Drive, Google Email, SharePoint. You can also link your private domain server. So you can type in the server details there. So your agents can then interact with those various storage systems, those various documents, files, and so on. But what we've done is you can decide which files, which folders you want specific agents to have access to. So, for example, I'm just showing Sheldon here. So then you can go to the File Explorer, and whichever of your drives you've authenticated and linked to the application, you can choose that and actually then navigate through the files and just select, okay, cool, I want Sheldon in this case to be able to interact with this file and interact with those folders, and I hit the update permissions button. Then Sheldon can read look inside that folder, see what files are in there, if he needs to read them, update them, or whatever the case is. You can also then, if you ask the agent to create a file for you or copy a file or move a file, it can then move them into that folder. So it's literally as easy as that. And then to create your agents, all you need to do is go to Sheldon and type in exactly, what you want the agent to do. Is it an admin assistant or a technical engineering maintenance assistant, whatever the case is? You can just type in exactly, what you want the agents to do. Click the create agents button, and those agents will then be created for you. You can also, all your agents, including Sheldon, can search the internet. They can interact with your files. So maybe something that's quite common is just pop in your role profile, for example. This is my roles and responsibilities at the company. Please create agents to help me with, these points. So then Sheldon can go ahead, read that file and build agents specific to whatever you need, whatever your use case is, and so forth. Whatever questions you have or anything you're unsure of, you can also just ask Sheldon to explain the various features, tools, whatever the case is, by hitting the interface help button. And then Sheldon will explain to you exactly, what to do, what your agents can do, how to deploy them, and so forth. There's also a help menu where you can go to the help information, where there's the various sections, categories, just to give you some idea of the various capabilities and so on. And then again, you can just ask Sheldon. So let's say, for example, if we want some information on the agent tools, we don't know what they can do, you can also just then hit the Ask Sheldon button, and then Sheldon will go off and explain to you exactly, what the tools are and so forth. So yeah, you can see Sheldon's gone and listed all the various tools that the agents can use with some explanations. But I'm going to take you through all of that now. But yeah, any other questions you have, or if you have if you want to, dig deeper into the various tools, capabilities, etc., you can just ask Sheldon, and Sheldon will go and explain exactly to you how that tool works, where you can use it. Sheldon also has access to an overview of the agents you've deployed. So you might say, if you maybe have a marketing agent, you might explain the image creation, editing features, etc. So any questions, Sheldon is there to guide you through this new technology, how to deploy AI, and so forth. So let's have a look at exactly how the tools work, how your agents go ahead when they complete their tasks. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So this is a simplified flow chart, which shows what the agents are doing in the back end, how they're executing the various tasks for you, and the various tools that they have available to them. This is probably a 8-hour minimum discussion. So I'm going to just go through it fairly high level. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments, or, send us an email and we can, explain things further. But again, any specific questions you have on the various tools or interactions with the agents, you can ask Sheldon, and Sheldon will explain to you exactly what's happening or how you can use your agents. So basically, a sort of high level explanation of what's happening on the back end. When a query or question comes through, whether it's the way we've been asking questions, through the normal chat interface, or it could be a scheduled task that the agent has to execute for you, or it could be a triggered task. So your agents can also trigger one of the other agents that you've created, tasks and workflows based on whatever your requirements are. What the agent then does is it takes that query and then dynamically creates the system instructions, prompt structure, tool definitions based on what is required to complete the task, based on whichever models the various tools are using. So we've integrated to all the OpenAI, all the Google Gemini, and all the Anthropic models. And based on whatever the latest best model is at completing the various type of task, we then dynamically update and switch to whatever the latest best task is. So in the back end, the agents are building the prompt structure and tool definition for whichever model is being used, as well as what is available to that agent. So just for an example, your agents can update various types of files, so Excel, JavaScript, HTML, whatever the case is. But maybe you haven't shared any of those types of files with the agent. So then when it's building the tool definitions, etc., and then it excludes that tool and that capability from the agent. And maybe then you search a folder. So you've asked the agent, please look in this folder and, look for the latest, I don't know, invoices. And then, when the agent looks inside and, gets the information of the files in that folder, then again, they'll dynamically update and recreate the tools with any additional capabilities that are required, as well as, listing the file names to make sure that, the agent calls the correct file and that type of thing. So once the agent has, created those structures, then the first step in the process is obviously like retrieving any information that is needed to complete the task. So this could be, looking at a shared folder, looking through a bunch of files that are relevant to the task. The agents we've implemented a custom Google search engine. So your agents can then, search the internet, and again, in a separate, an agent with a specific setup and, system and prompt structure to execute web, to handle the web search or returned information gets triggered. And then that agent will, generate a report of what's actually relevant to the query. As well as your agents can then, search through your emails and look for specific information. Then if it's, the more complicated tasks, your agents can then execute like a reasoning process, if you want, where they can then look through their memories and see, is there any relevant memories to this task? So maybe there's a set or a process defined on how this task should be completed. So if I go back to like maintenance engineering, when you're completing a problem solving, there's generally specific steps, or it's a predefined process that is the best approach to completing the task. So the agent could, for example, look through their memories and find that. And then the agent will create a plan with individual steps and objectives and instructions, and it'll work through those, steps one by one to complete the task at hand. And then obviously, for our enterprise customers where we've linked external databases such as SAP, the agents then can also, if I'll stick with a maintenance example, can then read the maintenance history on, let's say, a specific piece of equipment or over a specific interval, work center, whatever the case is. And then again, they'll generate a report based on that information. So your primary agent manages several agents that then work simultaneously to handle this, the information retrieval process. So if let's go back to reading files, for example, when you want to, read information from documents, that information, the agent can't be creative. It shouldn't, fill in the gaps, for example. So that specific model and setup is, optimized to only find, it returns information verbatim from the documents based on the context and query that the, main agent has passed forward. And what's quite nice about, or the benefit of working that way is, if we think of that JFK documentation example, where you have to, it's reading dozens and dozens and dozens of files. How that looks is your primary agent says, go and read all those files. And then, 20 agents get triggered all at the same time to then read those, massive docs. Some of them are several, 100 pages, for example. And then it only returns exactly, what is required to complete the actual task. So then the information that is returned to the agent that's actually completing the task is what is actually required. So, for example, maybe reading emails is a nice example. Generally, you'll have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails, which is massive amounts of text, when maybe you're only looking for the school email, and in the school email, you're only looking for, the events that are planned coming up. So instead of the main agent, sitting with a whole bunch of information that isn't necessary to complete the task, all that gets returned to that main agent is, this is the email, this is when it was from, or this is who it is from, this is when it was sent, and here's exactly what you're looking for. So once the agents then have, retrieved all the information that they need to complete the task, then they'll head off to actually use that information, as well as, whatever your question is, to complete that task for you. So again, they'll dynamically build the possible tool structure and instructions to complete the various tasks. So your agents can generate reports, diagrams, graphs, charts. They can create images for you, edit images for you. They can create, edit, copy, move files for you. Then in the workflow builder section, which I'm going to take you through as well, we've got a few additional tasks where, when the workflow is completed, then the completed or finished workflow, finished task, can then be used to maybe trigger another agent's task. So for example, like I said earlier, I have an admin agent which, manages my calendar and does a meeting preparation for me, for example. Let's say I was back in engineering, and in the morning meeting, we had a specific breakdown, a specific problem, and then obviously I'll trigger an agent to go and, solve that problem, etc. Then what I would do with that completed workflow is say, okay, please send that to my admin agent in order, and get that agent to then add it to my meeting preparation notes for the weekly fault analysis meeting or whatever the case is. Then what we've also included in the workflow builder is the ability to actually then generate and, if you like, send emails. So we've only included it there so that it's, more controlled, more structured, etc. You can test it. Your agents aren't just going to be randomly sending emails. If you want to include the capability to send emails, in that output section, you define, who you want the email to get sent to, which of your accounts you want it to be sent from, and so on. And in that workflow section on the outputs, you can also then take those completed workflows and then use that to update your custom interfaces. A really useful example of how you can use this capability is creating long-term advanced deep research where your agents then aren't limited to, a specific time frame to research or, generate a report or whatever the case is on a specific subject. In these workflows, which then can get triggered based on schedules or can be triggered from other agents, or you can manually run them. It can take that completed report on whatever, you're researching and creating a report on, and then send it across to your interface where you're interacting and building this research report. So, for example, there might be information that you're waiting from a colleague, they're handling a certain section of a specific project or report. And as that comes through, then you keep working on whatever your report or, your deep research project is. So yeah, that's how you can then interact with your custom interfaces as well as your scheduled and, autonomous workflows. So then once the agent has, completed whatever the task deliverables are, then the agent will evaluate that and see, did I meet the requirements that were initially set out? If not, it'll, it can go back, make some changes, fix up whatever the sections are and so forth. And if it's correct, then the agent just returns the response. And again, maybe just without going too deep into the weeds, each of these sections also trigger sub-agents with specific system instructions, context, setup, etc. So that when you, for example, evaluating, is the task completed against what the initial expectation was, I think the best way to maybe explain that is to, again, think of it as a person. So if you can imagine you've spent 2-3 weeks generating this full solution to a problem, building a report, doing your data research, etc. And then somebody asks you, is your report correct and does it meet the requirements? Obviously, you're going to say yes, because in your context, all that you're thinking about is exactly what you've done. It's, that's front of your mind. You don't think, let's say, outside the box, and you won't be critical of, have you met each and every single requirement? So, for example, what we do there is we trigger this second agent, which understands the context of your primary agent. So if it's a marketing agent, it understands who that agent is, but it then doesn't use everything that was completed as the input to, is this correct? It takes the original requirements and then it checks them, one by one. Is what I'm looking for in requirement 1 in the output, yes or no? Is what I'm looking for in requirement 2 in the output, yes or no? And then that agent's instructions are to generate corrections. So it's thinking, find mistakes, generate corrections. So anyway, that's just an example of, how we've built one of the back end agents for you. So yeah, there's also, I think, if there's, again, throw in your comments if you have anything you'd like me to really dive deep into. Maybe just for interest's sake as of today, but this changes at the moment. New models are getting released almost weekly, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. But at the moment, the best models for handling large context are the Gemini models. So for looking, for reading through your files, for handling the web queries and your email queries, we're currently using the Gemini models. Reasoning currently is OpenAI. So the O series models, O3, O4, they're the best currently at reasoning, coming up with plans, evaluating plans, and those types of things. Okay, so one of the tools that I haven't included here is the data analysis. So your agents also have the capability, and I'm going to show an example now, to take in massive data file. Okay, so for example, I just wrote a Python script to create like a messy sample, like SAP maintenance data with like 60 rows by like 150,000, 60 columns, like 120,000 rows. So it's like millions and millions of data points, which then, translates to like, I don't know, 14 million tokens if you try to pass that through to an agent. So your agents also have the capability to handle and create script Python code and then execute it in a secure environment to manipulate that data to find what you're looking for. So it streams in basically, if you'd like a temporary copy of what that data looks like. And then we've included libraries to manipulate that data, generate plots and things like that. And then what that agent will do is, so it'll take the first, it's like 20 rows or whatever the case is, and X amount of columns of data to get a feel for what the data looks like. And then it'll generate the code to, filter it or whatever the case is, manipulate it to generate the table or graphs or statistical analysis that you're looking for. And then what that agent can do is, when that result gets returned to the agent, if it is correct or if there's maybe some information missing, then the agent will iterate as required. But what we are seeing with the latest models is they more often than not on the first attempt are actually getting the data analysis pretty spot on, including the creation of plots, which then, get returned to you and displayed for you, etc., which I'll show you now. And at the moment, that's actually a combination of the O3 model and the GPT 4.1 model. So the O3 doing the strategy and the iteration, and then 4.1 just doing like the little sections or code snippets that get passed in. So yeah, that's a sort of high level of the tools and what the agents are doing in the back end. One of the new or updates is your agents can also now process and analyze audio, images, videos. As you saw earlier, I passed an MP4 video across to the agent, and they're able to analyze that for whatever you're looking for. So in our example, the agent would then extract the instructions. So it's like looking for text. Maybe you have a video where you're looking for a specific feature, whatever the case is. So when your agent is creating and triggering the back end file analysis agent, it passes a query across saying, this is what I'm looking for. This is how I want you to return the information to me, and so forth. And again, this all happens for you in the back end. As you've seen through the queries that are put through, we've tried to create the back end structures robust so that you don't need to be a prompt engineer. We test each of our various functions with as the worst prompts, the shortest prompts, the most vague prompts that we can think of to complete a specific task. And then in the back end, the agents, they figure out and they fill in the context to actually then go off and complete that task. So yeah, and all of this will be in the help menu. You'll be able to ask Sheldon. And yeah, let me know if there's any additional information you guys would like around how this works. Like I said, I've probably taken a 8-hour discussion and tried to squeeze it into a few minutes. So yeah, let's have a look. This is actually in one of the most incredible